Hey guys, before we get started with the episode, I just have two announcements to make. One, I have the Jibs journal is out now. I send a weekly journal through email every single week that covers episode highlights, tips and tricks that the entrepreneurs in the show have gone over, and just other cool things that are happening. If you're interested in being subscribed to that journal, the link is in the description. The second announcement is I've released a course. So the course is how to crowdfund for your passion project, your side hustle. I crowdfunded over $65,000 in less than 90 days through my organization called Research Detroit. And the class is going to cover, the nitty-gritty details on how I did that, how I delegated the tasks with my team, the templates, the samples. It goes into full detail on how to run an effective crowdfunding campaign. So if you're interested in taking that course, the link is in the description as well.
It's just about getting up and doing it and finding the time, finding the people, and making it happen.
You take control and you say, okay, this needs to be done, and you do it.
And you're never ready to start a business. You just you either do it or you don't.
Welcome to the Jibs Podcast, showcasing Detroit's movers and shakers, bringing you stories that reveal the gusto and grit that's long defined the city and its people. Together, we'll uncover the history and direction of the Motor City, one voice at a time. This is the Jibs Podcast with Jibran Ahmed.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 21 of the Jibs Podcast. I got a really exciting episode here today. I'm with Ned Staebler, the CEO of TechTown and Vice President of Wayne State. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah?
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking this time. Let's just get right into it. Can you explain what TechTown is and a little bit about yourself, too?
Sure. So TechTown is Detroit's oldest business incubator and accelerator. Been here about 15 years. We do we have acceleration and incubation programming in both the technology space and the non-technology space, as well as we also have physical real estate, co-working, office, and lab space here in a 130,000 square foot facility, as well as some newer spaces coming online.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm originally born and raised in Detroit, although grew up half the time in Ann Arbor, so I kind of have my foot and feet in both worlds. Went to Detroit public schools through 6th grade, then U of D high. Went off to the East Coast for college at Harvard, and then was going to do some business for a couple years before coming back here, but got caught in sort of the fintech banking world for about 10 years. Before doing a master's degree at the London School of Economics on what we would call sort of political economy, and then came back here in 2005 and worked for about 5 years at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, running over innovation-based economic development programming for the state. Came down to Wayne State about 7 years ago and assumed TechTown as part of my responsibilities about 3 years ago.
Okay, so you've been part of TechTown for 3 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what TechTown was 3 years ago and what it is today?
Yeah, so actually, I've been on the board at TechTown for about 10 years. Yeah. So back when I was at MEDC, I actually helped fund some activities that were here. And then obviously when I came down to Wayne State, I was very, much more involved while I was here. And but just the changes over time, I can go back and give a little more context. We were originally created to commercialize technology out of the university and the health system, and I think very quickly we realized we should be a community accelerator as well. So we took some technology. We worked with entrepreneurs who were not just from the university. In the downturn, we pivoted a little bit to work with entrepreneurs more than businesses. So we ran a fast track program that trained thousands of people on how to be an entrepreneur. And then after that, in sort of 10 and 11, we pivoted back away from entrepreneurs. We jokingly said who were in the pre-idea stage, like they wanted to be an entrepreneur, but they didn't necessarily have a business yet. Right. And said, let's focus on people who actually have a business. They might not have incorporated it yet, but this is what they're going to be doing. They got a plan. And we've moved a little bit more into that space. And then around that same time, in 11 and 12, we created a set of programs that weren't technology. So that was a big piece of our evolution. We took the same principles of acceleration, customer discovery and business model canvas, those kinds of things, and said, those apply whether you're building a mobile app or a medical device or selling brownies or cutting hair. You still need to figure out what your clients want, how they want it, how you're different from everybody else in the market, et cetera. So we morphed that way. And now this year we're launching a nonprofit center based on sort of the same principles. How do we get nonprofits to think more about who they're serving, how they're delivering those services, how they're different from other folks, how they're collaborating with other nonprofits, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great, because I know that from my own experience, foundations are becoming more, I guess, stingent on data-driven metrics and all this stuff, which for smaller nonprofits can be kind of tough. But that's awesome that you guys are doing that.
It is. I mean, helping nonprofits understand how to sell themselves better to philanthropy, to be able to tell their story better, to give them some of those tools, to help them build that capacity is really important. We also want to make sure they're serving clients better and that they have an understanding of how they're doing that, and with program evaluation tools, what's working, what's not working, are they meeting their clients where they need, which is exactly what a tech company needs to do. You know, trying to figure out what's the business model for this app. Are we going to give it away? Is it are we going to sell subscription? Is it going to be cloud based? Is it going to be license based? How are we doing this? What's the right price point for this? So it's the same kind of thing in the nonprofit space.
Yeah, I agree. So you kind of mentioned, TechTown had pivoted a couple of times. So can you talk about the obstacles that you ran into, or that TechTown ran into when growing, especially in the beginning stages?
Yeah, so there are a lot, right? So TechTown's a nonprofit. We are loosely affiliated with Wayne State and with Henry Ford Health System. So some of the obstacles were branding issues. People initially would say, "Oh, well, you're a Wayne State entity." Well, I'm not a part of Wayne State, so that's not for me. Or you're connected to a hospital. Well, I'm not doing healthcare. And even later, as we started pivoting into or expanding into non-tech programs, you've got a big fancy building called TechTown next to a hospital and a university, and I'm starting a restaurant in a neighborhood somewhere. Clearly, that's not for me, right? So those are an important set of barriers we've worked hard to overcome. Funding is a constant one, especially as you went through sort of 2009, 2010 and the downturn time frame. Money was pretty tight. The corporates dried up almost completely. The state government struggled mightily at having money. So there weren't a lot of places. We were fortunate enough that philanthropy stepped in. Folks like the New Economy Initiative were our biggest funders during those times and really helped us keep the lights on. But they were hard times, especially when you look at, you mentioned philanthropy looking for a little more metrics, and they're always talking about sustainability. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're serving a population that they're using you because they can't afford to get these services elsewhere, there isn't really a business model that says, aha, I'll use earned revenue and earn income to offset this. So you have to have philanthropy. I always joke with some of our funders that when they say sustainability, I say, oh, my sustainability plan? Well, I'm going to stop asking you for money, and I'm going to ask them for money. Right. From your point of view, it's sustainable, right? But the reality is my customer can't afford to pay for it. So there isn't a model that works really well to make us long-term sustainability. So funding and then sort of brand identity are probably our biggest challenges.
I see. So going from talking about TechTown to, I guess, the ecosystem as a whole, Detroit's becoming a name for tech and for entrepreneurships or for startups. I mean, we're Startup Week is this week, which is awesome, and they have a lot of great workshops. But in your experience, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's either listening or watching that wants to start their own company or startup?
Well, this is going to be a little counterintuitive. You expect the guy who runs a startup incubator to be like, yeah, do it. All right, everyone should start things up. I mean, I'd say no. I mean, this is the easy time to get out. Yeah. Because if you're not 1,000% committed to doing this startup, you don't think this is really the best idea for you and for your lifestyle, you should stop now before you sink your time, your money, your opportunity cost into this venture. Because I guarantee you, this is as easy as it's going to be. 6 months from now, a year from now, 18 months from now, there will be much, much harder points along the curve where you will start questioning, why did I do this? So if you're not sure you want to do it now, yeah, you probably shouldn't. It's sort of like if your friend is telling you, I'm not sure I want to get married, maybe she's not the right girl for me, tell them to get out now. Because it's not going to, in 6 months from now, a year from now, it's going to be harder to get out. So that's what I would tell people. Be sure you're doing it. You really want to do it and it's the right thing for you. if you need help figuring out if it's doable, how possible it is, because I know that figures into the equation, come and talk to us. That's why we're here. We'll sit down with anybody and for free and roadmap out, like, all right, what are you thinking about? Is that a real thing? How does that happen? Are there already people doing that? How will you compete with them? And help remove some of those barriers for you. If you're thinking you want to do it, but you're not sure you know how, or there's support for you out there, come and talk to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point that at least what I see is that entrepreneurship has become romanticized to some point, where people don't really understand the work that needs to be put into it or the commitment level that needs to be put into it. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, everyone thinks, I'm going to go work for myself. That's me, great. Well, you might not be the best boss. You also might not be the best coworker or worker, right? Like, you got no one, when it's just you got no one else to blame. There's no one else to pick up your slack. You're the CEO, and you're the custodian, and you're the HR department, and you're the sales department. Like, it's a lot of work. It's really hard, and you don't turn it off at 5 o'clock. You don't punch out and like go home. I think I'm going to watch The Voice now and not worry about work anymore. It's a 24/7 thing when it's entrepreneurship.
Yeah, 100%. I think what's really funny is so I've led small teams in the past, and when you're a small team, everybody does everything, and that means taking the trash out or sweeping the floor. And definitely, there's been people in the past that are I don't do that. I'm like, no, you definitely do.
Yeah, look, I'm the CEO here at TechTown. It is not unusual for you to find me, sweeping up some stuff off the front steps or mopping up somewhere because I was the closest to it, and I saw a broom, right? The bane of my existence is when someone says that's not my job. We're a small entrepreneurial organization, and we're trying to not only talk the talk but walk the walk. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's no such thing as that's not my job. That's not my job is why companies go out of business 5, 10, 15 years later.
Yeah.
That's an important part of our culture here.
Yeah. What kind of resources would you give people or lead them to if they are looking to, again, start a company?
Sure. So a couple of things on that. One, we always say that our role here at TechTown is to connect people to the right resources at the right time. Now, we might not be that right resource, right? So a lot of folks come in our door and say, I want to start up a bakery. And when we ask them, well, okay, are you in a commercial kitchen? Are you popping up? Are you selling online? How are you doing this? And they say, I haven't gotten that far yet. We'll refer them to the Build Institute or to Prosper Us or SBDC or one of our partners, because they have specific programs to help you when you're at that sort of level. The Build Basics class, for example, that will help you work through what the business side of a business is. We're more than happy to do that. It's why if you go through those programs and you come back and you're in our retail boot camp, more than half of the companies that have gone through retail boot camp are now open in brick and mortar. Why? Because we don't take everybody that says, I think I want to open a bakery. We want to make sure you're a serious person, you have traction for your business, you really know what you're getting yourself into. But we can help you with business planning, with product development, we can help you with funding, we can help you with customer acquisition, sales, marketing, we can help you incorporate, we can help you protect your intellectual property, really just about any aspect of your business. If you're serious about it and you need help, come and talk to us. If it's not us, we're happy to refer you to the right place.
So taking the whole city into account, how has entrepreneurship grown in Detroit over the past 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, I would say unevenly.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer, and we here at TechTown are big believers, that Detroit's not going to be successful unless everybody gets to participate in its revitalization. Folks that have been here for a long time, folks that have stuck it out, newcomers to the community, people who want to pitch in at every aspect of it. And so it can't just be about, a bunch of 30-year-old white dudes in hoodies roll in with some earbuds and that's going to save Detroit. That's ridiculous. So we focus almost as much on the bin-ups as we do on the startups aspect of it. And we get out of Midtown and downtown, and we work in neighborhoods all over the city as well. It's part of why we don't just do tech anymore, because we wanted to make sure that there were not only jobs and opportunities in neighborhoods, but also amenities for residents in those neighborhoods. It sucks if you live in a neighborhood and there's no place to buy a cup of coffee or get your dry cleaning done or buy shoes or socks or hardware, right? And you got to drive 5 miles when cars are expensive, auto insurance is expensive, transit sucks. So we're really committed to making sure the entire city gets to participate in it. And that isn't happening as much right now. You still look at, there are some amazing things happening all over the city, But you still, it's the natural tendency. When Ford announces they're going to move into Corktown, woo, that gets all the attention. When Gilbert says he's going to do X, Y, or Z, or WeWork comes to town, that gets all the attention. But what happens when, Mac Development is doing something on the east side, or Live 6 or Grandma Rosedale Development Corp are doing things in, Brightmoor or over in Southwest somewhere? They're not getting the same level of attention. They're not getting the same level of support. Now that's slowly changing, as you're seeing even folks like the New Economy Initiative that once were very focused on the new economy, that is tech. They're now realizing that, the new economy also includes people that have been here a long time and need some support to sort of play in that world. But you're also seeing the JP Morgans of the world that are coming in and saying we need to be very intentional about geographic diversity, but also racial, ethnicity, gender diversity as well. So that was a long way of saying we've come baby steps, but we got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I do appreciate the Ford's narrative saying that they don't want to be like an island, but they want to be a part of the community.
They talk the talk really well, and that's great. That's you don't walk the walk if you don't talk the talk, right? I mean, I guess strong but silent or something like that. Yeah. But okay, great, check. Now let's keep going and live that. Exactly. Because there are a lot of people that have talked the talk. Some people would say we talk the talk but don't walk the walk. Yeah. I would, we could fight about that, but we certainly are trying to. Yeah. But there's certainly a lot of people that talk the talk and have no intention of ever doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's Ford. I'm not pointing fingers or naming names. I'm just saying that it's not enough to make a press release and then get back to business as usual.
Yeah. The Fitzgerald project.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was there during the community meetings and being a part of the block clubs there, and I remember there was a community meeting there, and there was this lady that I was speaking to, and she was like, I know you guys are trying to turn every vacant lot into a meadow or park or doing this thing, right? But before U of D put their fences up, they had this program where they would offer soccer or sports to kids after school so that they had something to do. Yeah. Is that going to be here?
Wow.
And so...
Before U of D put their fences up. So I went to U of D High in the 80s. Those fences were up then. Yeah. I grew up in the University District in the 70s. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the fences were up then. I don't know when those fences went up.
Yeah. Well, she was saying that there was a program for kids.
It doesn't. I bet you if you went and talked to President Garibaldi, he'd tell you the 12 programs they have, or the 20 or 200 programs they have. I don't know exactly. But fences are a real thing, and they're also a psychological thing. Yeah. We used to have a whole system of programs. At Wayne State, we still do. We call porous borders. It's all about getting people to understand that the university is a space that they're allowed to and are welcome in. Yeah. And getting people on the campus to realize the city has a lot of wonderful amenities that they're allowed to go to and are welcome in, and getting people on and off campus, because I think that's how you activate a university to its fullest. Now, University of Detroit has a ton of great programs like that, so I don't mean to say they're not doing it. Yeah. Walls are a psychological barrier, though. I mean, you see it and you think, aha, I'm only welcome on this side of the wall, not the other. Mm-hmm. So.
Detroit, again, is growing in entrepreneurship and the resources that it has citywide. It's not like a San Francisco or New York or LA, but where is Detroit strong in this aspect and where is it lacking?
Yeah, so when we're not a New Yorker or San Francisco, whatever, we're never going to be, and I'm cool with that, right? Like, you look at the massive amounts of inequity and inequality that are happening in those communities, and okay, we have a chance and an opportunity to be really thoughtful about how we grow and develop. We did not do that 100 years ago. We grew in a really unsustainable, inequitable way. So we have another chance now to do that better. So, for example, at TechTown, our entrepreneurs are 70% of them are not white. About 35% of them are over the age of 50, and about 33% are women. And even on the tech side, you're still 70% not white and 20% women. Now you say, oh, only 20% women, that's really bad. Well, the national average is 8.5. So go out to Silicon Valley and you won't find a whole lot of women in tech. Here we're 2.5 times that. We still have a lot of room to grow. It should be closer to 50%. But I think that's a huge strength that we have, that we have a chance to leapfrog them in a much more sustainable growth pattern. That is recognizing that we get strength from our diversity and from our representation from all types of communities, not just, you're a 28-year-old white dude in a hoodie, therefore let's hire 5 more like you, and you can hire 5 more like you, which I think has been a little bit of the sort of the tech bro culture in other places.
And where do you think we're strong?
Diversity. I mean, we have that ability. We talk a lot about talent here, and we talk a lot about the lack of talent. And sure, by some measures that a lot of people use around college degrees and whatnot, it's not good. But you don't have to have a college degree to be an entrepreneur. We can all come up with lots and lots of very famous, very now wealthy, successful entrepreneurs who didn't go to college or didn't finish college, but they were smart. They knew how to hustle. We got a whole saying, right? Detroit hustles harder. All right. Well, we have a very resilient population here that, to throw out another cheesy adage, necessity is the mother of invention. We got a lot of necessity, and we got a smart people. If we help, they've sparked the fire. If we help throw the gas on the flames, I think that's a huge area of strength for us to solve urban challenges that are very scalable. That is San Francisco's, New York's, Paris's, Cairo's, Tokyo's have these kinds of urban challenges too, and we can address them here in Detroit.
So you kind of answered my next question, but
do I get bonus points for that?
You get 1,000,000 brownie points.
Awesome.
So, not just talking about entrepreneurship, but Detroit as a whole, what makes this city so special to you?
Well, partly because it's home. It's where I was born. It's an amazing place in many ways. People always we have this ongoing debate here, and I've been on both sides of it over the last 45 years. Of who's a real Detroiter and who's not. There's some people that say unless you were born, raised, public school, never left, lived in this inside 8 Mile your entire life, you're not a real Detroiter. There are other people that are on the other side that I don't care if you just if you want to be a Detroiter, you're a Detroiter, right? We need all hands on deck. I'm a believer that you're a Detroiter as soon as you establish a love-hate relationship with the city. If you just love the city because you read about it in the New York Times one day, or you moved to town and you're like, SLOs and the DIA, this is awesome, right? You're not quite there yet. Right. And if you just hate the city because, this is the worst place ever, and I live in pick some suburb in Chesterfield Township, and I would never go down there with those people, and I hate the city. Yeah, you're not a Detroiter. Because Detroit is a fabulous place. It has some of the most amazing things and assets and people in the world. It's also frustrating and, God, I want to strangle this city sometimes for how frustrating and it can be. So that's why Detroit, to me, it is this perfect combination of beauty and grace and intelligence and frustration and dysfunction and stupidity, all in the same package. So
that's a great answer. So moving away from Detroit, moving away from TechTown, let's just talk about you for a second.
Cool.
You're the CEO of TechTown, you're Vice President of Wayne State, so you've had this journey where you've been through a lot of different things, right? So do you think that there's a life event or something in your life that has kind of led you to this point that is, this is what I want to be doing?
So yes and no. Like, I'm not a big believer that everything happens for a reason and one door closes and another opens. Like, those are things we tell ourselves to make us feel better about our journey, and that's important, right? That's human psychology. I would say that I've learned a lot more from my failures than from my successes, which again I think is human nature. Because when we succeed, what do? We pat ourselves on the back and go, "Of course we succeeded. I'm really smart. I'm good at this," right? But it's when we fail is when we have to reevaluate. Was I not meant to? Am I not suited for that kind of opportunity? Would I not be good at it? Is it not something I want to do? Was there subconscious? I didn't try as hard because, I didn't really want to be there. Those are the kind of things that make you reassess. So, for example, before I ended up at Wayne State and TechTown, I was the finalist for 2 CEO jobs, and I didn't get either of them, right? So, and in both cases, I would say they weren't perfect necessarily fits for me. Do I think I should have gotten those jobs? Absolutely.
Right.
Certainly in one case, I'm really happy with the person who got it. I think he's doing a way better job with it than I ever would have. Yeah. And partly because, that's not what I should have been doing. This is more of what I should be doing. I ran for political office 8 years ago, and I didn't win, right? And I learned a lot from that experience. I learned what I'm good at, what I'm not. I learned about better ways to tell your own narrative than I was doing. I learned who your real friends are and who aren't. I mean, you learned about what you can do, what you're strong with, and what you need to work on, right? Like those kinds of experiences have been really formative. And I would actually, if this is sort of a chance for an old man to give advice to the kids coming up, I can't believe I just said that, but I would focus a lot on those kinds of moments, and I would remember that every single person who you look at and go, oh, that person's successful, that person's successful, that person's successful, they all had failures. Lots and lots and lots of failures. And don't expect your path to be this linear, I graduated valedictorian from high school, went to a great college, got a good job, started a business, made $1 billion, started a foundation, became the president of some university, and then I died, right? Like, that's not how it worked. There was 3 bankruptcies along the way. There was 2 divorces. There was all kinds of, problems along the way. Your path that has all those kinds of winding roads and problems, that's the same path that Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and Bill Gates took too, right? Every single one of them had those kinds of problems.
Yeah. Are there any books, softwares, apps, mental models that have helped you become more efficient in what you do?
Well, I tell you, if you want to talk about Detroit, you need to read 2 books. Origins of the Urban Crisis by Tom Segura. That's the real story of what happened, not the sort of whitewashed, let me tell you some riot story. And then the other one is Arc of Justice by Kevin Boyle, which I think is a great page turner that takes those broad themes and brings into very specific relief. I read those books over and over again because of that reason. There's just so much to learn from it. In terms of like the techie kind of world, what do you read? I read a bunch of blogs. Things like Engadget and Gizmodo kind of stuff. If you're looking for the leadership-y type stuff, I love all of the Zingerman's books. Yeah. So Servant Leadership, the Ari Weinzweig, How to Build Better Leaders and Better Companies. I really recommend those. I'm a big believer that culture starts with leaders, and if leaders are demonstrating and propagating the kind of culture they want, and it's one of servant leadership, that is, you're all leaders here. I'm not more of a leader than you. I think those are the best companies are built around those kind of principles. Starting businessy stuff, I don't know. Everyone's got a blog and a podcast. Yeah. I think we put too much faith in, so-and-so did something cool once, therefore they must know how to teach it. Yeah. I was at a panel at Techonomy like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and we had Jack Dorsey we had Dan Gilbert interviewing Jack Dorsey. And so Dan Gilbert from the Quicken world, everyone in Detroit knows him, Jack Dorsey, who founded Square and then Twitter, and they were talking about how companies and what tech companies should do for for city government, how cities should use tech better. I'm like, really? These 2 guys don't know anything about urban redevelopment. And no offense to all the stuff Dan Gilbert is doing, but they're very different. Setting up a great technologically infused mortgage company is very different from urban planning. They really are different concerns, different goals. I mean, there's some overlap, but I'm not a big believer that just because someone's successful in one area, almost always business, that they're necessarily going to be very successful. Usually, we ask them to do things in public policy, in other words. So, be your own leader. Don't try to be the next Bill Gates. Be the first Ned Staebler.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks, brother.
Absolutely.
Do you have any last words, or if people wanna access TechTown, where can they find you guys?
TechTownDetroit.org. That's our website. TechTownDetroit.org. You can also call us. You can email me, Ned Staebler at wayne.edu. We have open office hours, both here at TechTown and then out in some of our neighborhood satellites, where just come in and talk to us. We got ideas about a business. If we can't help you, we'll find somebody who can.
Cool.
Appreciate
it, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.